set. So we've looked at the 2 3-figure packs, the Sontarans and the 2 Doctors, and now we're moving on to the only TARDIS pack that I have so far, which is the 5th Doctor in Caves of Androzani. And as you can see, all the packaging is nice and loose because I don't have this out yet. No, I do have it out yet, it's not in the package. So there is an insert which I'll have a look at. I didn't have a look at the inserts in the other ones because they're very boring and very bland and bleh. So, this is the first TARDIS set from the 2 that I have. And this one includes a very nice Peter Davison figure. So this is the Peter Davison figure from the 13th Doctor set. Repainted, so there were a couple of flaws with this figure, but we'll get into that in the review. And then we have this TARDIS, and I like this TARDIS. I like it a lot. It's a very nice TARDIS, and it just gets me going really, this TARDIS. It's nice. I like the 80s TARDISes, and there's some nice little features on that are going to look good. Disclaimer, there are 2 holes in the bottom of this TARDIS that are supposed to help screw it into the packaging, and whoever screwed mine in decided, no, I'm going to screw it into the actual plastic base itself. So I have 2 nicely drilled in holes that aren't supposed to be there. Thanks, whoever packaged my figure. So, box-wise, nice, and the same. Uniquely, this box actually has a description of what's going on in the story. And a little bit of a fun fact, this figure here isn't this figure here. This little figure is actually a prototype. It's, I believe, a Photoshop mock-up from the original 8th Doctor regenerated figure with the 5th Doctor head in it, and that's the one we all wanted. Because most people don't have this version of the 5th Doctor. Most people have that version of the 5th Doctor from Resurrection of the Daleks, or the other Resurrection of the Daleks set, but with the hat on. So this one's a bit of a... It's a rise and fall, this set. There's some good points and there's some bad points, but we'll get into that in the review. So this is number 3 of the 5-part series, and from here on out, it gets so much better. And welcome to the review table, and here we are with set number 3, and this is the Caves of Androzani 5th Doctor and TARDIS, as I said in the intro. So we'll take a look at the 5th Doctor first, because he's, sorry Davison, not all too impressive, and then we will come on to this beautiful TARDIS. So we'll move him over there. He's now sitting on my phone. Whoops. So this is the Davison figure, and again, like most Peter Davison figures, it looks like Peter Davison, although the face looks maybe a bit young. The hair is really nice. It's kind of had like a really light blonde colour painted on, and then a really dark wash put over. You can kind of see that just in here, just how light the figure's hair actually goes. It's quite close to a Colin Baker-esque kind of hair colour. So the face is really nice. My only gripe would be the lips. They looks a bit like lipstick, and a bit like he's I don't know, pouting a little bit, kind of thinking, which you'll notice more when I compare it to his other figure. Sculpt wise, the jacket is really nice. As always, the creases and the wrinkles and the buttons and the lapels and everything is just sculpted on really, really nicely, including the piping around his jacket, which stands out perfectly. Though my figure seems to have sat in the packaging wrong, and it's been sculpted wrong, and it's kind of set in this nice kind of wavy part going out the back, which I quite actually like. It looks like his coat blowing in the wind, which is quite unique. And then there's also a chunk of mine missing, which you find on some figures. Castings go wrong and things come out, so there's a nice chunk missing from his back. But there's the figure from the back. Again, the piping, the pockets, everything looks really nice and really crisp and really thingy. There's only a bit of paint bleed, only a little bit. There's some there. And I think that's it. Any other paint bleed would kind of fit in. His legs are sculpted really nicely in this kind of standy-esque pose. His trousers have been painted in a very simplified version of his trousers from season 21, and that's why I'm not a big fan of the figure. The jumper's been sculpted and painted really nicely and really accurately, but the trousers are a bit lackluster, to be honest, and you'll notice why in a minute when I compare it to the old figure. His shoes have been sculpted really well, thanks to the wash and the darker soles. I've actually noticed the holes in the side of his shoes and the turn-up bits at the front. So it's the first time I've actually noticed them. It's the first time I've noticed a lot of these things with these figures. But that's nice. And then there's his shirt with the green painted on. So the biggest difference to this figure is the wash of mud that's kind of been painted across his jacket, which is nice, but it feels a bit too thick. There's no fading going out from the edges. There's no kind of like tails of it down here in his coat. He's got nice and pristine on this side, but fully dirty on this side. So I don't think the weathering is the greatest, but it looks good and it looks okay. My only gripe is that there's no weathering under the actual arm. There's weathering here and in the actual bicep itself, but nothing under the arm. It's like he kind of fell over and kept his arm really close to himself, because I want to keep it clean. But then all this is dirty as well, so why is that not dirty? Why? So, accessory-wise, he doesn't come with anything, but articulation-wise, he's your standard 5-inch figure. He's got head, shoulder, bicep, elbow, wrist, waist, hips go up, hips go out, hindered by his jacket, swivel at the thigh, and bend at the knee. So, comparison-wise to... Sorry, I had an itchy eye. Comparison-wise to his alternate figure, this is Peter Davison from the Resurrection of the Dalek set, and as you can notice, he does actually have his celery, whereas this figure doesn't, but by the time in this story he'd actually eaten it. So the orange piping on this figure is nice, but it's more reminiscent of his season 19 appearance than his season 21, where the piping kind of went a bit red. They've also painted in the buttons on his arms, which I don't believe were ever actually painted on. Trouser-wise, though, as you can see, these trousers look better than these trousers. And that's all I have to say, really. These look more accurate. His shoes on the B&M set actually do look better. Look like they have a better sculpt. As you can see, kind of like the holes are more pronounced than the other foot. But that could just because it's a 13 Doctor set figure and not a non-13 Doctors figure set. The jumper, I think, looks the same. I think they've painted it in a bit more of a white, whereas this one's a bit more of a cream, and the red's a bit of a darker colour. And the green looks good, that they've painted some green up in this part, where they haven't painted it in that part. And face-wise, you can see that this... See what I mean by the lips. His look a bit more pursed, while his look a bit more normal. But other than that, it's a good figure. It works well beside his other self, but we don't care about him. This is the figure we care about. So you can go over here, and you can go stand in the background. So that is the Peter Davison figure. And I've rambled on about that long enough, because this is what we're all interested in. The TARDIS, the nice TARDIS. Now, I'm not that great with TARDISes. I can't tell you how accurate this is. I can't tell you how screen accurate or what era it comes from. But it is definitely an 80s TARDIS. You can tell by the colour scheme. So, anything on this is just my personal opinion and not actual facts. So, the lantern is nice. It's the lantern that we've seen on all TARDISes except for the Shardar one, because they decided to change it. It looks really nice. It's up on this thick piece here. The roof is, again, nice. It's the same piece that we've seen on the 7th Doctor's TARDIS and the 1st Doctor's TARDIS. The signs look really nice. It's got a nice wash over it with a nice blue background and some white lettering. I think the lettering is a bit thicker than the other TARDIS. I think it's a different font as well. I'm just comparing the two X's to the other one. The windows have a kind of creamy, dusty look to them, which is nice. And this sign, I also believe, is in a different font than the original one. These doors aren't from the 7th Doctor's TARDIS, though. These are actually from the 4th Doctor's TARDIS, because the sign doesn't open. The lock has been painted in a gold colour, and the handle has been painted in the same blue as the TARDIS. The TARDIS has a nice wood grain effect, which is nice. It kind of stands out. And like all big B&M TARDISes, it has a glossy finish, which gives it kind of a cheaper feel, but this one actually feels really nice. On the back, you have the speaker hole and the cover, where the battery pack used to be. My only gripe would be the speaker hole, but we've gotten enough new sculpts in these sets to say, yeah, okay, thank you for leaving that one. And talking of new sculpts, the base is different. It's a flatter one. It still has a bit of a turn up, it still kind of slopes upwards, but it's nice and flat and holds the mechanism a lot better than the big thick boy over there. Features-wise, the TARDIS is exactly the same. The doors open, and you can see on the inside the colour. This TARDIS doesn't seem to be as thin plastic-wise as the other B&M sets, which is nice. I don't think a light would shine through just as well, but you can kind of see that the bulbs in the background are shining through the windows, which make it look quite nice. There's no inserts in here, and I know a lot of people have asked for inserts in the TARDISes, but that's inaccurate. None of the classic TARDISes had inserts in them. To close the doors, all you need to do is, there's a little latch up here. I don't know whether you can see that. You just pull this door closed, and it clips into place. And then this one, you press. There's a button here. You can't actually see it. Well, you can kind of just about see it. There you go. And you can also see just how thin the plastic is. And close the door. Now, this TARDIS does actually feel a lot better than its predecessors. Not the original release of TARDISes when character options was at its height, but better than the other B&M TARDISes, which is nice. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. It looks really, really good. And comparing it to its predecessor, you can definitely see height-wise the differences. The two bases, this one's really thick because it's got this whole mechanism in it. With the lights and sounds, it's turned off at the moment. But yeah, no, the TARDISes look really good. The size difference is very minimal, but works well. You can see that both the tops are exactly the same. The font is definitely different. That one I think is a bit thicker than this one. Again, if you look at the X's, and I think the font is definitely different in these ones as well. If you look at the pull to open signs at the bottom. So yeah, I actually quite like this TARDIS. It does have a bit of a wash to it, which with some B&M sets the wash kind of sometimes rubs off, so I'd be careful with that. And it has a load of dirt around the base, a couple of different colours of browns, and that really doesn't actually bother me as much as it bothers some other people. It just bothers me that it doesn't kind of splatter up a little bit more. It looks a bit fake just on the TARDIS, but other than that, it looks nice, and it's a good set, and if you can pick it up, I would highly recommend picking this one up. It is a good set. It is good. So we will move over to the overview. I'll just give one more comparison between the two TARDIS sets, because the original 5th Doctor's TARDIS that was going to be released was going to be this box. They were never going to resculpt it. So there you go, the two TARDISes together, and I prefer that one. But don't tell that one. So, my final thoughts on the 5th Doctor and the Caves of Androzani TARDIS. I have to say, it's probably the strongest out of the two TARDIS sets that I've picked up, or at least it's my favourite one out of the two that I've picked up. The new sculpted base is quite nice to have. It gives an extra bit of depth to the TARDISes. It gives something, it gives a bit of change in the lineup, which you can see there. It's a very small change, but it's quite nice. And you can't actually see that, so I'll show you a picture. There it is, there's a picture on the screen now. You can see that there is just a bit of a difference, but not too much, so it fits in well. Having a regeneration 5th Doctor works, because then we have a nice little Caves of Androzani set with Perry and Shara's Jack and now Dirty 5 Doctor, so yeah, it works well. And the TARDIS itself works for the 5th Doctor, for the 6th Doctor, and for the 8th Doctor, so I can't really complain. The backdrop in itself, which I didn't show you in the review, is really nice. It's just a bit of desert with some smoke in the background, and yeah, as a 20 quid TARDIS set, it's really good. The only thing missing is the lights and sounds, but for 15 quid less than the originals, I'll take this over sound effects any day.